Let's see. Make that go away. Here we go. So our plan is today we're going to start Unit 8, which is two-dimensional arrays, 2D arrays. So check it out. In Java, these are actually arrays of arrays. So the way you write it is like this. Int, if we're doing an int array, you do two sets of square brackets that are empty. And then the name equals new int, and then you have to give the dimensions of each side. So Java is called row major, which means the row is the first number. And rows go like this, and columns are like what hold up a building. So if you're like, which is columns? Remember, columns stand on the ground and go up and down and hold the building up. And that's how I remember that. Java supports non-rectangular two-dimensional arrays, but for the AP test, they're only going to be rectangular, so you don't have to account for that or worry about that. We use square brackets to access elements of a 2D array. So here's one way to visualize a 10 by 10 array. The index values go from 0 to 9 for the columns and for the rows. And so if I called this call nums 3, 8 equals 7, that sets the value in row 3, column 8. So 0, 1, 2, 3, all the way over to column 8. We're going to make a Battleship game. Oh. Not today, but we're going to. Everybody, you want to listen to this? Shh. The number of rows in an array can be found by getting the length of the array. So the name of the array dot length, that tells you how many rows there are. And the number of columns in the array can be found by getting the first row and then getting the length of the first row. So that's what I'm doing here. Nums square bracket, nums at 0 dot length. That's getting the first row out, looking at it just by itself and figuring out how long that is. That's how many columns there are. Yes?
Can you do like a nums 0 and then 0 dot length, and would that like give you?
That would give you the length of what was in the spot at spot 0 of row 0. But there's not a dot length for numbers, so that wouldn't work for an integer array. But if it was a string array, yeah.
So could you do as many square brackets as you wanted to?
I haven't tried it. I think you can do more than 2 sets. I think you can do 3 and 4 and 5. I don't know. So if I asked you to tell me how many elements were in an array, you could find out by multiplying the number of rows times the number of columns, which is this down here. Nums.length times nums at 0 dot length. That's how many, if there's 5 rows and 10 columns, there's 50 elements, 5 times 10. So you can also create two-dimensional arrays using an array initializer like this. So int array nums equals, and then you have curly brackets on the outside, and then a curly bracket for each row.
These commas outside the comma.
Yep.
I mean outside the bracket. These commas outside the comma. Is that right?
You have commas in between the rows. So a whole row shows up like you used to be able to declare an array, and then, yeah.
You do rows that like aren't the same amount?
Well, that's what I said. Java supports that, but we won't be doing that. We're always going to have the same amount. So if I ran that code, this is the array that would get created. The first row is 1, 2, 2, 3. See 1, 2, 2, 3, and 3, 2, 1, 3, 3, 2, 1, 3, 4, 3, 4, 2. Any questions? So I'm going to ask you to hold up your finger and tell me what a value is at nums at 0, 1. I see all the numbers. I see 3, 2, and 1. So you're not all right. Remember, the top corner is 0, 0. So this is row 0, column 1. So the people who had a 2 up were right.
Oh, wait. Oh.
Row 0, column 1.
Wait, rows are going up and down. I forgot.
Rows are going across.
You just said that.
Rows are going across.
You just said that
columns go up and down.
Yeah.
We're going to do it again, though. Hold up a finger for what's that? Row 2, column 1. I think you're right. 3. Wow. That's captured on the recording. All right, here's another one. What do you get? Row 3, column 1.
-1. Wait, what? There's no 3. Jack. 0. Oh, wait, yeah, -1.
What do you hold up that indicates that the program is crashed?
How do you
A fist. Yeah, out of bounds, baby. There is no 3-1 on this array. Row 0, row 1, row 2. If you try to do 3-1 on this array, you'd get a out of bounds exception. Tell me what you'd get on this if I printed nums.length. Hold up your fingers for nums.length. I've only seen one. Okay, not correct. Not correct.
Wait.
That's correct. Yeah. It's 3. This tells you how many rows. Getting the length of the array tells you how many. And if I got the first row out, nums at 0, that gets the whole first row out, and then the length of that is going to be 4. That's how many columns. This is what I'm saying. If you want to know how many rows there are, just get the length, nums.length. That's how many rows there are. And if you do nums0.length, or technically you could do nums1.length or nums2.length, but it's always safe to do nums0.length because we're going to be working with arrays that have rows. So it has at least 1 row. It may not have 2 rows, but okay, so hold up. Yeah, this is not going to work. Anyway, to get to that, what would we do? Call it out.
3.
2 down, 0, 1, 2, and then 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Thank you for playing. Everybody, here's where it gets kind of crazy. 2-dimensional arrays can be any data type, not just ints. So you can make a 2-dimensional frog array. I say frog pond equals new frog 520. That makes 100 frog spots for 100 frogs. So life just got better for us here in the frog universe. It's 5 times 20 is 100. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 5 rows. 0 through 19. It's 20 columns. 5 times 20 is 100. Yeah. That's, you can just multiply those numbers. That's how many there are. I didn't say what the index values were, but that's here you go. Here's 2 string 2-dimensional arrays. I made a string array called seating chart that's 5 by 6, 5 rows, 6 columns. And then I made a tic-tac-toe board. String array board equals x o x o o x o x x. I forgot if anybody's winning that game. X is 1. Yep. So everybody, if you print a 2D array by just saying print, you get that weird hash map thing. See that thing at the bottom? That's no fun. That's just printing some kind of memory location. This was true for 1-dimensional arrays. Also, to print these arrays, we use 2 for loops, nested for loops, or nested loops. And we're going to talk about this next class. Actually, we're going to do a tiny bit of it this class, but none of the assignments will have it in it today. Yeah, the first for loop is the rows. The second one is the columns. And in today's assignments, I wrote some methods that you can use that will print the arrays for you, so you don't have to worry about writing for loops to print. Everybody, final note. Just like with 1-dimensional arrays, 2-dimensional arrays have default values. So for ints and doubles, the default value is 0. For Booleans, the default value is false. And for objects or reference data like frogs or strings, the default value is null, meaning there's nothing there. So for this little example that you can't see because everything's blocking it, if I say int array nums equals new int 1040, and then I print one of them, you get a 0. And also here, I made 1,000 by 1,000 frog array. Is that 1,000,000 frogs? Yeah. Sadly, though, it's 1,000,000 nulls. So it's a lot of frog potential, but not a single frog lives there. Because if I print this one, you get null. And that means there's not a frog there. You can't hop that spot until you put a new real frog in that spot. So we're going to quick practice. Let's open a new REPL, everybody. We're going to code one of these together. So open a new REPL. Let's call it day 57 practice.
No, I did. No, that was part of the sound.
You could delete their silly stuff. Everybody, I want you to make an int array right now. Let's call it nums. And I want you to make it your age square. Yeah, make up your own REPL. Open a REPL, please. Greg, Jack, Brendan, if you want to sit together, you have to do work. So let's do this now. Open up a new REPL and make an int array that is a square array, and the rows and columns are equal to how old you are. Don't do 60. You're not 60 years old.
Are you sure?
I am. And let's do a for loop inside a for loop, and we're going to print all the values. Int I equals 0, I less than, remember, the number of rows. We're doing the row for loop. In fact, let's do R instead of I. R equals 0, R less than nums.length. That's how many rows there are, and R plus plus. And now let's do a column for loop inside of that. Int C equals 0, C less than, and someone remember how to get, yes, Jack?
Nums.length 0.
No.
Almost.
Num 0 dot line.
Oh.
Num0.length. What we're actually doing there is we're grabbing the first row, that's nums at 0, that's the whole row, and then we're getting the length of that row. All right, now inside here, we're going to print without the ln, nums are C. Remember, rows first, and we're going to add a space.
Was gonna make a big pop.
Yeah. And I'm going to change mine to be just like 17, because that was the best year of my life.
Why?
I'm just kidding.
Oh.
I think this is the best year of my life.
Why is it 0?
But I wanted it, mine wouldn't fit at 60. I wanted it to fit on the screen, not look crappy. Okay, so, and then after the C for loop, you need to throw in a println. That tells it, after you've printed a whole row, then go to a new line. Okay, so then run it, and they're all gonna be zeros. Pretty cool.
I'd make it 15s.
And why don't you up here, before your for loops, let's set your phone number to be somewhere in the array. So nums, I'm going to pick 5, 5. I'm going to start at 5, 5. And I'm going to do my work number. And you could copy that line if you want. Paste it, save yourself some time. I'm going to make 5, 6 be equal to the next number, and 5, 7 be equal to the next number, and 8. I missed 8. 9 and 10 and 11. So that's all before it got printed. So if you run it, you can see your phone number in the array. And if you wanted to go vertical, you could do that. I'm going to go vertical after my 2, and I'm going to put 2024.
Doesn't make it diagonal.
Yeah, that'd be good.
The number's too large.
And I'm doing 2024 here, like a crossword puzzle. Now I got 8242362 and 2024 going right here. And then just for kicks, I'd like you to try doing a number that's too big so you can see it crash. Oh, I changed the wrong number. Of course, it's okay to have a big number. It can't be put in a big spot. So when you go too far, you get this array index out of bounds exception. And it actually tells you what the error is. Take a look. This says index 44 is out of bounds for a length of 17. So that's what I did right here. I put 44. And so if you're debugging your code, that can help sometimes. You're like, what? How could that number be 12 when it was supposed to only be 6 or something like that? So right now, this was just for you to play with it a little bit. I'm going to answer one question, and then I'm going to assign the work.
Look at this. Diagonal. 239.
I like it.
Okay, yeah, the highest one you can get is 4. Yeah. This is you copied the line, didn't you?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Yeah, good. Anyone else need help? They're not that hard. They're just a little bit specific. You have to just know how to make them work. All right, I think I'm done with recording. Let's make sure. Yep. So we've got a big REPL, a Google form, and another REPL with a frog.